Introducing the man, I do believe that if you had a pound on every correct score that Steve Bone predicted, you'd probably... you wouldn't be able to retire, but...
£2. You'd have £2, I think.
Well, let's go straight there, shall we? Congratulations for getting the Sheffield Wednesday result and score right.
Yes, I did, didn't I? Yeah, I knew if I kept on and on predicting that we'd nab a 1-1 draw somewhere, eventually we would. And we did. And it was a very satisfactory result all round, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, before we get to that game, and the position that Pompey Sound took on it is that it should have been called off at half-time and we could all have got home earlier.
Yes, yeah, wouldn't have missed much, would we?
No, I said to Mick at half-time, I said, this is like a pre-season friendly.
Yeah, end of season feel all round.
But speaking of the end of season, your best prediction this season, to date anyway, I think has been Leeds, which came from nowhere.
Yes.
And you got that spot on, didn't you? Not just the result, but the score.
Yeah.
Pretty good going.
I'm pleased with that one. I sometimes get a feeling about a game, either just before the game, or sometimes in that case it was a few weeks before. Yes. I could see that fixture coming, and I just thought that's got the makings of a famous Pompey day, and I think we might. Don't think we'll lose, and I think we might win, and I think that's what I said, and it's exactly how it turned out. I don't always get them right, as you know. I'm also quite pleased with the fact that before the Blackburn game, when we were looking at our last 8 games, I said I think we need 10 points from these 8 games, and if we had got 10 points, that's exactly what would have kept us up. In fact, we've now got 11 after the point at Sheffield Wednesday, but 52 points has done it for people. Oxford down 52 and safe, so that was another prediction that somehow worked its way to be correct.
Well, you see, you can go on statistics, and statistics is a science, and there's a lot to it nowadays, especially since the introduction of that Moneyball thing in the United States and what have you. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you can't beat good old intuition.
That's true. Yeah, I think when you've been watching football for many years, and so maybe when you've been watching a particular team as well, you kind of get to know what they might do. You can't predict it absolutely, but you get an idea for games that they'll do well in and games that might be a problem.
I remember a backroom person at Fratton, this is 20 years ago now, saying to me mysteriously in her office, people can come and go at a football club, and they do. The faces are changing, ever changing, apart from the supporters, such as yourself. She said, but somehow, she said, every club I've been to has got something intangible baked into the brickwork.
Yeah, yes, that's right. So the heart and the soul of the club stays the same, whoever is around guiding it. Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's probably truer. The older the club, the truer that is, maybe, as well.
And the more historic the stadium.
Yeah, I think so.
Which is a constant, isn't it?
I don't know if you get that same feeling when you rock up to Everton's new stadium, or will you, or any of the other ones that we've come to sort of see in recent years. I think you must lose a bit of the heritage and the history and the heart, mustn't you?
Well, there's some things. For example, I'm just off my phone. I'm trying to buy a nice smart polo shirt because I've been invited to the final game of the season to sit in the director's box and
very nice.
The boardroom and things. And I've become aware that I'm the only bloke who comes dressed as a football fan who sits in the director's box. Everybody else looks like they're going to a wedding. I'll settle for a wedding.
Hopefully not a funeral.
Even Johnny Moore wears a 3-piece suit.
Really? Yeah.
In the Jimmy Dick.
I've always resisted. I've not often had an invite into any director's boxes, what have you, but I have once or twice, and I've always resisted them because the last place I want to watch a football match from is a director's box if I'm a little bit uncomfortable in what I'm wearing and where I'm sitting and who I'm sitting with. I much prefer to be in my normal seat, normal clothes.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying people in director's boxes aren't normal people, but you know what I mean. If I say I want to be with the usual crowd, sort of thing.
Well, someone made a remark at the last home game I attended, and about the fact that I was wearing trainers, and I could hear the dark thoughts that they were having.
Yes,
So
it shouldn't be allowed.
I think I came up with a fairly good line, which was, if it's good enough for John Messino, it's good enough for me.
That's true. Yes, that's a good answer. Yeah, he can do it. Anybody can.
I don't want disapproving looks, so I'm going to buy a muted polo shirt, because all my polo shirts, unfortunately, I can't really wear anymore because I've got the black and gold Fred Perry, which nowadays has very unfortunate associations, doesn't it?
Yeah, yes, that's going back a few years since they were.
So does my wardrobe.
The done thing, yeah. I'm sure you will look dapper.
Not there, no.
On Saturday.
No, I always look as though I've smeared myself in glue and run around the wardrobe. And I'm happy with that, because it's a football match.
Yeah, I know, it's not a fashion show.
No, I don't mind it smelling of hamburger onions and...
yeah, exactly.
And some guys...
Keep it real.
Some guys selling cheap flags at the street corner and cussing the rain. Anyway, let's go... Let's put Sheffield Wednesday to bed then, shall we?
Yes.
We got a point. Do you see it like that? We got a point.
Yeah. It was... I'm sorry, I'm going to have to clear my throat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh dear, sorry.
No worries.
The toils of the season taking its toll on my voice.
Yeah.
I've clearly been talking too much all season. Yeah, it was... I mean, I didn't take much notice of it on Saturday. I was following... as you know, my day job is to cover sport in Sussex, and we had quite a lot of excitement. It was the last day of the non-league season, and we had a lot of teams going for titles and playoffs and things. So I was kind of watching and keeping abreast of all those games. And I just, if there was a goal at Hillsborough, I looked up and saw who'd scored it, and then went back to what I was doing. I know you shouldn't really feel like that, and I certainly won't feel like that and have that attitude when I'm actually there for the whole game. That's a different proposition altogether. But yeah, it just felt very... I think maybe because both clubs knew they weren't going up and weren't going down. Sheffield as well as ourselves. I think that's kind of governed what type of game it was going to be. You can get classic encounters in those dead rubbers, can't you? But more often than not, you'll get teams going through the motions, not wanting to get injured, not wanting to do anything silly, not wanting to lose heavily, and that's why you get a 1-1 draw on such occasions.
They put up a better show than Norwich. I thought.
That's true.
What did you think?
Yeah, from what I've seen of it, Norwich really were on the beach, weren't they?
They were on the beach. That's the phrase.
The defence had gone on their holidays. Which we still had to take advantage of, and we did on that Good Friday. But yeah, Sheffield Wednesday, I mean, they've got this sort of side story, haven't they? They've got a lot of protests against the owners again. There was a march through the city by some of the fans, I think, before the game. So I suppose the team probably had it in their minds that the fans were the fans hadn't turned up wanting to see another defeat or a surrender or anything. So that probably just gave them an extra 5 yards, didn't it? An extra 5%. But we coped with it well. Nice to see Harvey Blair get a goal. Seen so little of him, haven't we?
Yes.
Good finish, not a spectacular goal, but he's right place, right time.
Yep.
And he seems to have, he's reminded us and the manager that he's there and maybe worth a longer look and a go in pre-season.
He finished it off very crisply, didn't he?
He did, yeah. It was well taken.
You can scuff those.
You can, yeah. Especially if you've had the sort of season he's had, not really been in the team, got in the team, didn't do enough to stay in the team. He's had a long time out. He's had a couple of sub appearances. If you then come on and get a chance coming your way, you must be thinking, I've got to take this. This is a chance to sort of change the course of my Pompey career a little bit, aren't you? But no, there's no sign of that, and he took it well and put it away. So could be one for next season.
Well, if he's going for the wide right slot, then on Saturday, if he starts, if he plays at all, he might be on the same pitch as another man who did that job last season so well.
Yes, yeah,
and might be available. If and when Hull go down, because they're looking a little bit below the waterline, aren't they?
Well, they are at the moment, aren't they? We could, if we beat them on Saturday, they're down, aren't they? They're a point behind their closest rivals, and that you would think they would have to lose a few. of the sort of higher earners and the better prospects in their squad. And I think if Kamara was available for a bit less than he went for last summer, did he go for $4.5 million? I think last summer when he went from Norwich to Hull. I think if he is available for less than that, and the deal can be done, I think Pompey will be in for him. And I think Pompey fans would welcome him back with open arms. And I also think he'll get a good reception on Saturday when he comes out.
I hope so. I do like it when fans repay with kindness a player who made a tremendous contribution, didn't he, to the title-winning season?
He was massive in that team, wasn't he?
He was the Josh Murphy of the season before, wasn't he?
Yes, he was actually. Yeah, that's a fair analogy. Yeah, and I think generally Pompey fans do give a player a fair reception if they know in their hearts he's done well for them. I mean, even Marcus Harness the other week, although he took a bit of stick during the game while he was playing, we had the sort of "we've seen you before" sort of chance, didn't we? He actually got quite a nice warm round of applause when he went off. Yes. So I think fans were remembering that actually he wasn't bad for us. He scored a few goals, set up a few goals, and was okay for us. So I think most Pompey fans are fair in that respect. But it'll be good to see Kamara on Saturday. Just hope he doesn't turn it on too much for Hull.
There'll be lots of saying of the right words from and about Marlon Pack, and he will state his eternal commitment to Pompey.
Yes,
and he will say that he believes that he has at least another season in him, even if he spends a lot of it coming off the bench. But what do you suppose his real internal thoughts and doubts are?
It's interesting actually. You wonder if he's had conversations with the manager, don't you, about what the manager's thoughts are for next season. He's not out of contract. You've got to remember he got a 2-year deal, didn't he? So he's not. It's not one that Pompey have to make a decision on, and nor does he. But he'll be wondering what sort of part he's got to play next season, and it's probably similar to this season, in that he's unlikely to be a regular starter in midfield or defence or anywhere, but at the same time you'd expect him, if fit, to be on the bench every week and probably come on and probably play a few games as well, and probably start a few. I think he could be quite an important squad player for us next season. I don't think he's going to fight his way back into a midfield starting spot. I think we've kind of moved on from him being that number 7 and the playmaker there. And I don't think he'll be used in defence, because I think we'll have enough fit central defenders. That's a rash statement, isn't it? Sort of believing that they'll all stay fit, but hopefully they will. So I think he's looking at being a squad man, and he's but still be club captain, I suppose, won't he? But he's not going to be the captain week to week. So I think he'll still be here. I don't think he'll move on. It's not impossible that he could move on if he thinks he can get more football somewhere else at his stage of his career, but I think he'll still be here. I think his heart is here, and he probably sees a longer term future for himself on the some role on the coaching staff as well.
Now, how many promising young Australian footballers still with Australian clubs do you think have been on the phone to our various Australians just to check out what the scene is at Pompey? Because do you think we've drawn a line under our association with the Socceroos, or do you think it might be ongoing?
I would think at the moment it's probably still ongoing, really, because we signed. If you go back as far as last summer and Ferrell, we've brought in another 3, haven't we? Because we brought in Waddingham and Matthews as well. That's it, those 3 being in addition to Yengi. Pompey clearly see it as a source from which they can recruit good players, good young players. The players that are in their sort of mould of being good enough to come and make an impression at the level of football we're playing over here, and good enough to develop as well, and possibly sell on in a couple of years as an asset. I mean, Yengi's an interesting one, isn't he? Because he's he's out of contract, I think, this at the end of this season, like now. But we have got an option of another year. I've seen a lot of fans saying, "Don't bother, Pompey. We're not going to ever see the best of him. Might as well move him on." But I'm not sure. I don't know. I think
we don't see him in training, do we? This is an important thing. John Messino is often emphasising that players can work themselves into the starting lineup if they impress during that week, just that week in training.
It's a big thing, isn't it, that we don't see? Yeah, we don't see who's doing really well. We don't know. For example, if there's anything Riley Towler was doing in training to make the manager think I'm not going to pick him. And there have been a couple of times where Yengi has he's come back into the reckoning at times when we haven't expected him to, and that makes you think, well, there must be something going on in training. There must be something that the manager's seeing week in, week out. And I still think he might be around next season. I think we're going to excuse me again. I think we're going to find out next Monday what is going to happen to the various out-of-contract players. And there might be one or two surprises among them again, as there usually is.
Yes.
But we'll soon know one way or the other.
Have a quick glug of tea whilst I read you a story that's just broken. It's not a story, really. It's a rumour. It might not even be a rumour, but...
Go on.
OK, go. It's the 72, which is one of those football news agencies that functions digitally, and they like to come up with stories. I'm not saying they invent stuff. They definitely don't do that.
They're looking for a line, aren't they, all the time? Yes, of course.
So, just broken. We're talking to Steve, as we always do, on the Thursday afternoon before the next match. So, there'll be a week. We'll talk to him again next week, I hope. I hope he's available, yeah.
God willing.
Yeah, well, that's that. Have another sip of tea. Portsmouth I'll read it. Portsmouth are showing a strong interest. Now, what does that mean? I'll ask you when you've had your third sip of tea. Portsmouth are showing a strong interest in a summer loan deal for Crystal Palace talent Hindalo Mustafa, according to the South London Press.
Yeah.
Now, when they say showing a strong interest, it does suggest that they have been told something by somebody.
It does. I mean, these stories can... Quite often these stories will start from a firm tip from someone who's in the chain. You know, it might be the agent, or it might be somebody else close to the player, or it might be somebody close to one of the two clubs. So there's often something in them, but equally there's quite a few. If you were to go back over the last 2 years and look at all the stories that have been written like that, there will equally have been plenty written about players that actually probably have never had any interest in and have never pursued at all. So it's difficult to judge them, really. As someone who writes stories and is always looking for an angle, you might write that Pompey is showing a strong interest in a summer loan deal for someone without knowing that the interest is strong. I think if you were going to write something like that, you would probably you'd have to have something to go on. You wouldn't just pluck it out of the air. But I don't think you can read too much into the way it's written. I think at the moment we can file him, and we can start making a list of players Pompey are linked with, and he's going to be one on that list. I think there's probably going to be quite a few of the sort of younger players at that type of club, at your Crystal Palaces and your Brentfords and your Brightons and your Fulhams. They've got some good young prospects that aren't really going to, because they're surviving quite well in the Premier League, they're not going to get into those clubs' first teams, and therefore will be looking for their parent club will be looking for a good level to sort of send them out to next season. So I think that is probably where that's come from. I'm sure there's something in it, but I wouldn't get too carried away or excited by it just yet. No. It could be one of those that we come back to in August and think, oh yeah, what happened to him?
We've got a couple of lads who are completing sports journalism and sports business qualifications, and they're Pompey fans, and they asked if they can do anything for us. And so I've said, well, you can have a little project. And one of them, I've said, scour the Australian press, we're back to the Australian connection now. I said, and see if you can spot anybody who's got the sort of credentials that that Matthews has. What's his face?
Same sort of profile.
That's it. The young, competent. And he's found two, and I've got to say, my eyebrows went up. One's a 6'5" teenage goalkeeper who is on the fringe of the the Australian senior squad.
Yeah.
And the other is a lad who can't stop scoring goals. Again, he's a teenager. He's 5'6". He models himself on Messi like you would.
Yeah. So do I. Not very successfully.
Not very successfully. But he was looked at. He came over here to try and get himself picked up, and he was looked at by Liverpool and Manchester United. And Rangers had a very, very long look at him and said maybe next year. So he's found these two players. But are we going to turn those into news stories on Pompey Sound? We run the news through the day on the hour. No, we're not, because there's absolutely nothing in it. He's just spotted people who've got the right credentials, and that's good work by him.
I don't think that's right. I don't think there's any harm in doing a story, but keeping that in context and saying, are there, ask the question. The headline is almost a question. Are these two young players that Pompey might look at next? I think as long as you don't suggest Pompey are already looking at them, if you don't know that, and you don't suggest that there's talks underway or anything like that, I think if you make it clear that you're taking a bit of a punt, taking a bit of a flyer.
Yes, for example,
and you're looking at that particular market and trying to identify players who might do it. I think that would be a fair story to do. It's when somebody then you'll probably find you'll do that, and then the 72 or Football League World or somebody will then write a story saying Pompey is showing a strong interest in a summer loan deal for 6'5" Aussie goalkeeper. Because sometimes one, like Chinese whispers, isn't it? One rumour then becomes someone else's inevitable deal. But it's the nature of football, isn't it? People will always be fascinated by transfers and who their club might buy and who their club's going to get rid of. It's part of the daily it's part of what keeps people talking about football when there's no football, really. So it's going to happen. Pompey's trick, and they've done it quite well in recent times, is to keep the lid on the deals they actually are. Yeah,
the listening figures at Pompey Sound the last 2 summers have gone up once the transfer window began. We realise, and I see this from looking at the other regional and local press that cover Pompey, that the real interest, the thing that really interests most fans is transfer gossip. Transfer news.
Yeah, I think so. The classic example of this is my old friend Bunky Bowers and I, we found ourselves on the same tube train coming away from Wembley after the 2008 FA Cup final, and Pompey had just won the FA Cup for the first time in 69 years, and by the time we got halfway down the Jubilee line, we'd sold, or we'd changed 6 of the starting lineup that had just won Pompey the FA Cup. Because what we'd moved straight on to saying, well, how many of that team will be here next season? And people can be quite brutal in moving players on if they think they've done enough for their team. Sometimes far too quickly.
Yes.
But it's one of the things.
It's what they want to talk about. They get to talk about. They get to talk about what they want to talk about.
Project things forward. Yeah.
I was chair of the Chichester branch of the Portsmouth Supporters Club for a couple of 3 years, and then being as they had a Portsmouth Association, they fired me, which I thought was. Very, very Portsmouth. I don't know what it was. I don't know. That's something. Show him the door. Anyway, I wanted to talk about things on the pitch. I wanted to talk about the players and the game that we played and how we were playing it and, what we could do better on the pitch.
Yeah.
But most of my dear friends at this supporters club, they just wanted to talk about goings-on behind the scenes.
Right.
They wanted to talk about the owners and the manager and
that's interesting.
Almost non-football stuff, but transfers.
Yeah.
Who we got to get in? We've got to get rid of him. Yeah. We've got to get rid of him before his contract goes and we get nothing for him. And that was that's what they really wanted to talk about.
It's fun, isn't it?
I know, which I found frustrating because I'm not bothered about slagging off the owners or the directors, but that was one of the real hobbies I found of a lot of Pompey fans, slagging off the shareholders and the directors. Of course, there was a time when they deserved it.
Yes, that's right. There have been. Yeah, there have been many owners that have deserved it. I think. I mean, I used to edit and sell a fanzine, back in the day, back in the sort of 90s, second half of the 90s, and if Pompey were doing really badly, if there was some crisis off the field, you knew people would bite your hand off to buy one. They would just go, and you could sell 500 at a couple of games. If Pompey were doing quite well and sort of sailing on and heading for the playoffs or something, and the manager wasn't under any threat and the team was quite settled, very, very difficult to sell any of them.
Yeah, that's interesting.
People, it's almost like people don't like good news, really. Well, good news doesn't sell as well as bad news. No, really.
Why is that?
It's true, not just in football.
That's humanity, isn't it?
It is, I think. Yeah. It's the way of the world in a way, isn't it, I suppose?
On our podcasts, we find that people go for combustion. Yeah. So, for example, one fairly innocuous podcast that contained the implication that John Messina was unhappy about something, we gave it the little headline, Messina goes for the throat.
Yeah,
which he didn't.
People lapped it up.
They made a dive for it.
Yeah,
because it sounded as though there was going to be some blood and guts.
Yes,
but that's just creative writing for you, or something.
You've got to be. That's all very well, but if you do that every time, eventually people will get to realise there's
have
not
to
be
keep
any
it
blood
in
and
check.
guts.
You're absolutely right.
Sometimes you've actually got to have some actual blood and guts in there.
Yeah.
Some substance to it. So it's a balancing act, but it's all part of the.
Here we are.
It's part of the fun.
Yeah, here we are slightly criticising Pompey fans who don't spend enough time talking about things that go on the pitch, and then of course there's you and me get together and we spend almost as much time talking about coverage and journalism and choosing the right word. So what?
Well, it's all part of the fun, isn't it? Part of the bigger picture.
Yes,
they call it, don't they? Yeah.
You mentioned Fulham in one context or another a moment ago, and that flagged up you know who in my brain, because apparently Boat is out on the grass.
Who is, sorry?
Boat.
Oh, is he?
The centre half we bought from Fulham, and then...
Did we buy him from Fulham? I've even forgotten where we bought him from.
Yeah, we bought him from Fulham.
Not been on the radar, yeah.
Last day of the season, the last day of the transfer window, I think it was.
Right.
And suddenly we had him, and he arrived on the Monday, put his boots on, went out, air-kicked an attempt at shot at goal, and
had a shot and was out for the season.
For the season.
He might be the best defender we've got, mightn't he? We don't know yet. He might not be any better than all the ones we've got. But until we see him, we can't judge him, can we? So that suggests that he's going to be fit and raring to go, as footballers say they are, for the first game of pre-season.
We were talking about something on. We were talking about something on Pompey Sound yesterday that I'll get your thoughts on, and it's this: what must John Messina be thinking that now, at this moment in time, for the first time in the season, he's got a full squad? And we've got all we've got left is a semi-friendly, and then the build-up to Havant and Waterlooville.
Yeah, I know. It's cruel, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Really? And you can't help. I know it's ifs and buts, and it's pointless in a way. But if we'd had this squad, and we'd had most of them, not all of them, you're not going to keep all your squad injury-free all season. But if we had just had better luck with injuries, if we kept a couple of defenders fit that we didn't keep fit, if we kept Lang fit, if Bishop had been in from the start, where would we be? I think we'd be top half.
Yeah.
But then you've got to then say, well, you've got to then allow all the other clubs to have had the same luck with injuries, and I'm sure there's plenty of other clubs that have had half a dozen good players out.
That's true.
But you just hope that if there are lessons to be learned about why we've had so many injuries, and it might just be bad luck, I don't know. It seems like too many to be bad luck. It seems like there's something in the sort of the way they train, or where they train, or what they train on, that is exacerbating things. And you just hope that if there are lessons to be learned, we've learned them, and that next pre-season everybody comes through, everybody's fit, full squad to select from, and it stays that way for most of the season, with most of them being available for most games, and then we'll see how good we are or not.
You mentioned your fanzine earlier. That leads me to ask how things are going with the book. What's the very latest there?
Yes, there's a bit of news about the book. This is the history of the club that was done for the 125th anniversary. There was, you might remember, was it about the start of this season, I think, a new paperback or softback version of it. The same book, updated to bring in last season's triumphs for the men's team and the women's team. So it was a great sort of final chapter. It was cheaper than the hardback because it was paperback. It's been sort of bubbling away all season. So copies have been going, but just to sort of round off the period of sale. It's at the end of its full price life cycle. From this weekend, I can reveal that the book will be discounted to £15, and proceeds, thanks to Bishop's Printers, who are the publishers, proceeds will be split between 3 charities: Pompey in the Community, Pompey History Society's Jerry Spraggs Fund, which is aiming to buy Peter Harris's 2 Division 1 Championship medals, and thirdly, Alan Knight's designated prostate cancer charities.
That's good stuff.
So 3 very good causes. If anyone hasn't got the book yet, this is your chance to get it for £15. There's 125 years worth of a story, and it's, no spoilers, but it's quite a good story. There's lots of twists to it. It's a bit far-fetched in places, but it's the story of Pompey. What's not to love. So maybe have a look at getting that.
What's the best way to track it down? Is it on Amazon, for example?
Through the club. I don't think it's on Amazon, but no. The Pompey store.
Oh, right.
New to You Books, which I think is it's either in Cosham or Southsea. I think it's in Cosham, and the Portsmouth City Museum and Art Gallery shop, all on board as retailers. You can also buy it by mail order from the Pompey store online as well. So various ways to get it, and if you haven't seen it yet, I know I'm biased because I wrote a fifth of it, but it's a good yarn, and you can now support 3 very good causes in doing so.
Okay, thanks for topping us up on that. Well done, and well done all round with that book.
Thank you.
Last prediction of the season?
Yes, I'm looking forward to Saturday because there's lots of drama to be had in the Championship on Saturdays, isn't there?
Yep.
There's 5 teams that can occupy that last relegation spot, and we're playing one of them, Hull City. Going to have to come down and have a go, and they need to win. I think we will. We owe it to the rest of the clubs to take it seriously and give it our best shot. I think we will, and I think we're going to win 4-1.
4-1?
Yes.
I like it.
You almost missed that, didn't you?
I've written down 1-1. I'm sorry.
No, it's a home game. I think it's a bit of fun in the sun to be had. We'll be playing with a certain freedom. We might see a substitute that we've not seen all season come on and get a couple, something like that. So it'll be a shame for Hull if they're relegated through losing to us. There's probably other teams down there that I'd rather see go down as opposed to Hull, but I think we'll get the job done, and I think it'll be a nice upbeat end to the season. We'll have Player of the Season awarded before kick-off, won't we? That'll be interesting to see.
Do you know if Atkinson is going to be available? Because if he is, and he scores one of your 4, he might just as well tear up the return half of his ticket to Bristol.
Yes, yeah. I think
we wouldn't let him go.
Seems to have come through in recent games. Okay, I mean he's a real end of season hero, isn't he, for us? He's come back and just done the right thing at the right time. Yeah, I think most would. We could be quite well off for centre halves next season, but you'd certainly want him on the roster, wouldn't you? You want him to be one of them. If we're picking between Atkinson, Shaughnessy, Poole, Matthews, and Boat.
Wow,
that's not a bad little selection to start from, is it?
Strength in depth there, right there.
Five centre halves away to Sheffield United, and you might even draw 0-0 up there.
We'll have to do a special, you and me, at some point soon on just our centre half situation, because
it's fascinating.
It is a soap opera in unto itself, isn't it? Really,
it is. Yeah,
extraordinary. We've gone from not having a centre half, either a left back, a right back, or a central midfielder playing at centre half, to having, you've just identified 5 people. Well, okay, a fascinating end of the season. Are you prepared to stick your neck out and say who you think might get the 4?
I think Bishop will get another one. I think Lang might cut. It'd be nice if Lang.
That little private duel to be top scorer of the season, because it's a credential, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, they'll be going for it, won't they?
Yeah.
I think Bishop and Lang might get one each. I think Ogilvy might get one because he hasn't got one for a while, and he might even get one or two of the Player of the Season awards before the start. I don't know. I don't know who. I mean, there's quite open, isn't it, the Player of the Season? So how many is that? That's 3. Bishop, Lang, Ogilvy and Murphy to score the 4 goals. You heard it here first.
Like it, Steve. Thank you so much. Talk next week.
Yeah, look forward to it.